Hello, and welcome to the Homeschool Conversations Africa podcast. Here, we discuss homeschooling from the African perspective and the unique challenges that come with it. If you're considering homeschooling, we hope to inspire you as you take this bold step. If you're already a homeschooler, we're here to share encouragement for this wonderful journey we're on to educate our children in the best way we can. We are your hosts, Jifa Andam and
Carissa Neti Mabel.
Let's dive right into today's conversation.
Previously on Homeschool Conversations Africa.
On the show today, we are privileged to have a wonderful couple who successfully homeschooled 3 kids by God's grace and are on their last one. They're missionaries in Ghana. They've been for the past 14 years. Pastor Fredrick is the pastor of the Independent Lighthouse Baptist Church in Tema, and Antionette is his wife. Now, you mentioned that you were a teacher, so I just want us to take a pause there, and I would like you to answer this for me, because a lot of people who meet me and find out that I homeschool will say, well, are you a trained teacher? So, Antionette, can you speak to that? Can you talk to people who are wondering if you need to be trained as a teacher to be a homeschooler? Can you?
No, absolutely not. Actually, it may not even be a good idea to have that background, because at home, the environment is not a school environment. And we're homeschooling not because we want to hear bells ringing and children moving from lockers to their classrooms, but we really want to be sensitive to the needs of our children, and also to be in focus on how they learn. Some children really learn well by just reading, some doing, and some children learn by both learning and doing. And so knowing that our children have different learning styles, we as parents have to really connect with them on the heart level to try to assist them. So in a teaching setting, in a formal teaching setting, it doesn't really play well in the home setting.
Well, we'll talk a bit more in detail later. I'd love to hear about how all of that preparation has fared for them in college, how the transition was and everything. But for now, let's talk about what homeschooling specifically in Africa or in Ghana for you guys has been like. What are some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, we started homeschooling in the U.S. before coming. And in the U.S., we were part of a homeschool association. We had co-op classes to teach. A parent will teach art, another parent may teach science, and so on. As you may already know, the organization of the Homeschool Association there are very powerful. So the support is intensive and is just rich. But here, when we came in Ghana, there's no co-op teaching classes, no science materials for experiments. Everything has to be shipped in. Even finding a microscope was difficult. No field trips, no science fair, and we didn't have a homeschool association that was, now we have Accra homeschoolers, which is great. But at the same time, have that kind of knitted support of academia that we receive from in the US. Here we gather to kind of have a play day and so on, but there isn't any parent teaching any course per se, but which is fine. But every 3 years, when we will leave here and we will go, when we leave Africa and go to America, we will expose our children to the science museums, the history museums. The Smithsonian museums are free in the US. creation science museum, any kind of music camps that we can take our children to. We sign them up for it. And so we will make up that. But being in Ghana, one thing we have is that we have used the online classes. YouTube is now big on teaching videos. And some of our favorite is the scientific subjects on learning a lot during our school times. We will use that. So if we're not even able to get the materials for the experiment, we can actually see the experiment being done and write about it and talk about it and discuss it. And so there were times when we will ship in our materials, the scientific materials, we will ship them in. And so it's a challenge. Sometimes in Ghana, a lot of places are non-children friendly. 14 years ago, they didn't have the botanical gardens in Legon, where you can go and do the obstacle climb and so on. And when people see children in places, they constantly, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in school. Why aren't you in school? What are you doing here? And so places are not so welcoming to children. And as you can even see, we don't have like libraries where you can go unless you find a bookstore somewhere where you can go and hide, which we did, and just read books and so on. And even at the bookstores, you have to be careful too, because some of the things are adult materials, and you have to be careful not to have your children stumble upon some of the books there. But we will go to the EPP bookstore and buy books and just read them if we didn't buy them, or we will just go out to at the backyard here and just enjoy being outdoors as a break from being indoors. So we don't have places here where you can go and visit a science museum. We don't have that. These are things that don't exist here. But the few places that we found, we did go to visit to learn outside the classroom.
Thank you. So I hear many challenges, but I also hear the ways that you try to overcome them. Like you mentioned, no libraries, but just going to the bookstore. And yes, at EPP, you can pick the book and just sit there and read it and buy what you need to buy, but they don't mind you doing that. So those are very helpful. I have hope, and that's part of why we are doing this. The hope is that we encourage one another. We shouldn't give up. We shouldn't think because it's not the way it is in the West. I feel like this is the beginning of the whole move in Africa. And so we'll have to go through some growing pains, but I'm trusting that by the grace of God, as we all pull together, we can form some of these co-ops on our own. We can do some of these things to help make homeschooling better and better as we go along. So thank you for sharing those challenges with us, because we know they are real and we can't pretend that they don't exist. However, on the flip side, I want to find out if you think this, just to encourage us who have to be here in homeschool, if you think there's been any benefit to your children of being homeschooled in this setting or this environment.
Yes.
I think the benefits have been tremendous. To be in an environment where every signboard you see, every input for our children having lived in America is someone who has an identity that is I don't know how to say it. I just you identify with the moment you see, you connect. It's been a positive environment. The science. I remember going to the laboratory at the cocoa farm. I believe going towards a brie, Fredrick, I believe it is, and having an entomologist just explain in great detail everything about the cocoa and it's wonderful. Going up to a brie and arbory and have someone who is a botanist just come and explain various things that we experienced and the whole experience of the castles and just the history that is involved in our culture. I think it's just been a really great experience and rich experience to see great accomplishments of outstanding academicians right here in Ghana. And I think it just affirms in our children, again, you can do whatever you set your mind to, and the contributions that one day you'll make. It is a big deal, but on the other hand, it's not a big deal because we're who are doing great things on a daily basis. So.
And people that they see Africans in their greatness. They see the great wealth, the great beauty, and the great successful CEOs and business men and women, doctors and lawyers and people that are and teachers and preachers, people of great value that they can kind of identify with, culturally, and have a love for Africa. Most people in the Americas or in the Western world would threaten their children. If you don't behave, I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you to Africa. Go to school. So our children in America or the UK, wherever, they see coming to Africa as a punishment sometimes if they're not well behaved there in America. But our children here have seen the beautiful wealth, our rich culture, our people, our food, the friendliness, the politeness. It really irritates my son when he sees people in America and waves at them and they stop and they ask him, "Do I know you?" It's like, I'm just greeting you, And so they are able to learn how to socially interact with people, socially ingratiate themselves, and just love people and are very welcoming. So we appreciate that aspect of us being here. Another thing is of things. We had the children do golf by a golf professional and taekwondo, vocational skills, instrument repair, learning how to repair these instruments we play. And it's just been a blessing that they can take up vocational studies at a very low cost. And even sometimes their personal tutors and personal private lessons that they get. There's a very few people that charge in dollars, but for the most part, most people charge in cities, and we're able to afford the charge or the fees or the cost of getting outside help in to help with their education.
Great. Wow. So friends, if you've just heard everything that Antionette and Pastor Fredrick have said, there are lots of benefits to being here. So let's not just focus on the negatives, but let's be encouraged to continue in what we are doing. Antionette, as you're telling, just listing all of these things that the children have been involved in, my question is just, where did they find the time? Because I struggle just to get through what we have to do.
I think what made it possible for us to accomplish the activities of our day is that we started early in the morning and pretty much one thing after the other. And as a result, we were able to accomplish a great deal in a given day.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So early to rise, huh? So
Yes.
Fredrick, I'm just going to stay with you here. We don't usually have fathers on this homeschooling dads on this show. And so this is a special treat for us. So while you're here, I would like to ask you to tell us a little bit about how you were involved or you've been involved in the homeschool lives of your children. Because a lot of fathers have to go out of the house to work and they're gone most of the day. And so they may find it difficult to connect. You know, the homeschool becomes like mom's thing. So can you tell us the ways that you were involved in your children's homeschool and maybe encourage the fathers who may be listening about
Right.
that they can do that?
Right. And our family devotions was a big part for me. And then just encouraging the whatever my wife had put in place, encouraging and supporting that. And many of the athletic things that they were involved in, I pretty much facilitated that for them. They were involved in golf. They did taekwondo. They did also instrument repair. That was something that it was a skill set that I had that privilege of giving them or helping them learn. And, you know, their own involvement in the various instruments they play, just playing as a encourager and, you know, that voice of reminder when sometimes they needed to be reminded. And so that has been the role that I've played, and I could never take away from the countless hours that my wife put in to help them. And so I thank the Lord for the input that I've been able to have, and I think I really don't have words to describe. I'm very grateful for the time that I was able to spend with our children in their development and see them now. I'm extremely grateful for how God has blessed what we, attempted to do. And
thank you very much for sharing that. So if there are any fathers listening to us, please be encouraged. I think what I hear Pastor Kearney saying is do whatever you can, find little ways to support and help, and then most importantly, support whatever your wife is doing.
Absolutely.
So that there's not a disconnection that you're one front doing this, and children can tell when you're not together. So that's great advice. Thank you. Moving on. Oh my goodness, our time is going, and I feel like I have so many questions for you. All right, so my next question, I guess it will be a 2-in-1. I'm just going to put two questions together. Since your children are now older, a lot of people who are homeschooling now have younger children, and this can be a difficult task. Can you tell us some of the things that you did, especially you, Antionette, maybe some of your practices or strategies to stay encouraged and refreshed, because it can be hard work sometimes. And also, just looking back, is there anything that you think you would have done differently, and the advice that you give to those of us who are in the trenches now or people who are considering?
Yeah. At one point in homeschooling, I got very discouraged because I'm constantly trying to ask myself, are they getting it? Are they getting it? And the question is, what is the it that I'm worried about, whether they're getting it or not? What I have found to really be a blessing in is mine shared with me that at one point she was pregnant and she was bedridden. They have to put her on bed rest. And as she stayed in bed, she just surrounded her children around her and read them books and read the children stories. And he said it was a time when they really learned a lot and communicated a lot, because it wasn't just read the story and let's move forward, but let's read the story, let the children, older kids, write down the vocabulary words and search about it. If it's a story about it let's do geography, but in bed, while she laid in bed, her children just surrounded her and she just read to them. One may get the geography book, another person may get the Bible verse, vocabulary, dictionaries, thesaurus, all around, and she just read to them. And during that, whatever trimester she homeschool her children. So just trusting that as we communicate with our children through reading good biographies, sometimes we have dear time and drop everything and read time, which they get to become the learners at that point. Making the environment in the home a learning environment. Baskets in the corners with good books in it. If the children are really young, just a basket of puzzles that children can be solving, Play-Doh, and so on and so forth. Just encouraging the children to observe. One of our children is like a scientist. He loves observing, and pretty much that's what science is.
Yeah.
Observing, making comparisons, and just using all your senses to gate your environment. And our son Michael would just go out there and just watch jumping spiders. And then, every time he'll be watching, I'm thinking, what's going on? But when we sat down to eat and we will ask him, how was your day? He says, Mom, let me tell you about jumping spiders. And he would tell me a whole lot about them. Why? Because he just spent an hour or two, following them, watching them and observing their moves and so on. And so the home environment also gets set up where the children just enjoy learning. Everyone has their own learning style, and we've always enjoyed just having good books after reading. If you get too bored, pick up your instrument and practice. And if there's someone that shows up that wants to be taught, also teach them. I don't know if I've answered the question or not.
I think you have. I'm hearing that don't. I think what I'm hearing is don't shoot for perfection. Like the example you gave. Do the little you can with
right
the situation that you're in, or what you're
yes
doing. Just manage the best you can. Don't stress yourself, which I think a lot of homeschool moms do. A lot of homeschool moms are probably perfectionists and always comparing and thinking, what's the other person doing? We're not doing enough, and
right
encourage.
yes One thing we try not to do is comparing ourselves with other families, but it's not really a good thing to do that, because every family is different, every circumstance is different. So look to the Lord and be sensitive, majoring in on our children and their needs, their gifts, their talents, and helping them to develop that in a unique way. I think that's always encouraging to do that. And a lot of times when they're playing it, when they're in the kitchen folding, washing dishes, or when they're in the laundry room folding clothes, one of my sons, Michael, was a storyteller, and he would just entertain the entire family with his storytelling. When they're in the kitchen washing dishes, we'll be playing where they will hear the Spanish teacher say, "Repeat after me," and so every time using audio, sometimes we use videos, but mainly we try to use audio a lot when it comes to language learning and even song learning, Bible songs, Sunday school songs. We were just playing things over and over and over again, and children just soak it. They just soak it up. Yeah.
That's right. Oh, so what? This might be a hard question, but maybe you could still try to answer it. What would you say is the most important thing that you did to help shape your children into the wonderful young men and young lady that they are?
I think family devotions where we hear them pray and we also pray for them. And then my husband always encouraging them to know Jesus for yourself. Know Jesus for yourself. Mom and dad, we know the Lord, but we want you to also know Jesus for yourself. And then discipleship. It's important that our children taught from the word in a discipleship manner. We want to teach music, we want to teach math and science and English. And then when it comes to the Bible, it's kind of like, that we read the Bible, so we shouldn't be answering, or we don't make the time or a curriculum time to do that. So discipleship, if there's 11-week program on a discipleship, a basic discipleship lesson using the word, definitely make sure that they go through that with you. Sometimes through discipleship, they may confess certain things that they're doing that may not be right. They may then have to, pray and ask the Lord to forgive them. Through the discipleship, a lot of things come forth, but definitely making the time in the word at the family table, listening to them share questions that they may have, any kind of doubts that they may have will all come up in a time of discipleship with them, so that we as parents can kind of direct them through the Bible to let them know this is why God says it this way, and so that's why we do it this way. Yeah.
That's wonderful advice, and you are right about that. We tend to treat the Bible differently. We don't. It's almost like it's not as serious sometimes, but
Yes.
it's the most important.
Yes.
I will say.
Yeah. In the field of science, evolution is trying to erase everything that is biblical about creation, or not trying, but they have. And so we have to take a stand and say, hey, we're people of the Bible. Genesis, creation, that's how we know we came into this world. And these are the verses that support what we believe. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's important. Just this morning, one of my sons was asking me, some tough questions about Noah and the ark and the flood, and how did all the animals get to the different planets, after the flood, all of these difficult things. But we must find, I had to go and do some research. I gave him some answers. I said, I'll find out and I'll come back to you. And he did not forget. The next time he asked me again. And so I had to share what I had learned. But these things are important, because if they don't get some good answers, That's when
Yes.
they're out and somebody tells them something, they begin to doubt. So yes, that
Yes.
is certainly very important. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
So I think I'm going to ask maybe my last two questions just because of time, and then I will let you guys go because I know I've kept you for a while.
Yeah.
I said earlier on that I wanted to find out how the transition into college had been for your children, because people, if you think about homeschool children, they think, oh, they must be socially awkward. How will they get into college? So all of these, I just want to talk honestly about what the experience has been like for your three. Yes, so that everybody can hear and we can have a real example of what it's like, and maybe not what we think.
I think they will be the ones to probably give the very, very, very best answer. But I guess since you're asking the parents, the transitioning, how they have made it.
I think one of the greatest assets that they've had growing up as MKs or missionary kids is that they are very adaptable, and so I think they I guess they're referred to sociologically as third culture kids. They have, a Ghanaian culture, American culture, and then a culture of their own culture. And so I think one of the things that has been a tremendous benefit to them is that they all attended the same, and there was always that sense of togetherness, and I think I really did emphasize over and over in their growth and in their development leadership. We've read many different books on leadership and listened to many lectures on leadership, and they were basically taught and guided to know that wherever they were going or wherever they ended up, they were going to be there as a leader. And so Fredrick and as he went through, matriculated through, that was what he was. I mean, he composed a song and did a lot of video work, and just the things that they enjoyed doing when they were here, and they had the most crude resources to do it. They now were in an environment where they had the opportunity to have the finest equipment and to do what they had done here in Ghana with, very little. And so I think the leading in Bible clubs, things like that, there's so many things that they did that when they arrived on campus, for Stephen, when he arrived, he was elected right away as class president, and basically led his generation through his whole college, experience. And then Michael, who just arrived on campus, he's in his second year there. Pretty much just the same shows for the characteristics of leader and the things that he does. He leads. He's a music teacher in the academy that they have at the college where he attends. And so I just feel like the transition was very, wasn't a difficult transition. They, I would say on one hand, I can't, just as I know them when they were at home, without a doubt, Michael would be the 4.0 student or 3.98. Fredrick would be involved in everything, making it happen, and very, very glad to graduate. And Stephen, basically the never quit. he would be, making sure that he understood, regardless what it took to understand. So he would probably be the one behind his professor, asking questions and explaining, trying to really have an in-depth understanding of whatever it was that he didn't understand. And so that was their, that was the way they were when they were home. And so basically, I think they carried those same characteristics to college, and they've done well. And I think they've done exactly, they've not done anything that I didn't expect. So based on, the personalities they have and the way that they performed at home.
Wow, praise God for such wonderful testimonies. And it sounds like you really do know your kids. I what I see here is that you did mention the crude instruments they had and Fredrick composing music, and I have had the privilege of hearing the choir that he was in, play. I think I've watched the
right.
It's pretty amazing. So we thank God for that. I think that God blesses the effort that we put in with the very little that we have. We have to be faithful with whatever He's given
Amen.
us.
Amen.
I would love to interview 1, 2, 3, or maybe all of your kids someday. So please tell them.
Okay.
Tell them.
Okay.
Yes, if they will grant us that would be wonderful. So
great.
Wow.
We can connect you with that oldest one, Fredrick.
Okay, great. I would love that. So my last question for you this today is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? I've asked you so many things, but I don't know if there's anything that stands out to you that you'd really like people considering homeschool, those who are homeschooling already to know, or just anybody who's listening really, that you'd like to share with us before we let you speak.
I think there's only one thing that I would say as an encouragement, that you can do it and be done, irrespective of what your experience has been. I think the greatest experience as a parent would be to learn everything you never learned with your children, and have fun doing it, and that can be so beneficial. So don't quit. One of the things that I guess our children they laugh when we speak to them is that they were never allowed to quit, and I told them that they were going to be the very best that they could be, and that's who they were competing against. And if that made them the best in the world, great. If it made them the best wherever they were, that's good. But the best that they could be was what we always were striving for. And so say it can be done, and just continue to do everything that you can to expose yourself to as many modalities as you possibly can to make your children, help your children to be successful. And so that's what my contribution. I know Antionette definitely has some things that she would want to say.
Yeah, I just want people to remember the reason why they chose to homeschool. Having a Christ-centered biblical worldview imparted upon the children, the importance of family, being kingdom-minded, to give the children an opportunity to serve and to give their talent, their treasure, their time, their testimony, and knitting our hearts with our children's heart. Our children giving their heart to us and not to someone, a peer, or not to a professor or some other person, but definitely when they realize that all this that we're doing is all about preparing them to have the generational blessings that God promised in his word to give us. Lord, as we love the Lord, he says he will bless us in our posterity. And so we should always remember the next generation and stick to remember the reason why we're doing what we're doing, and to encourage the children to not quit. I remember Fredrick wanted to quit at one point learning the piano when he was 5 years old, and we didn't let him quit. And at the age of 15, he was playing one day in the living room, and he turned around and he says, "Mom and Dad, thank you for not letting me quit when I was 5 years old."
Wow.
And but it took 10 years for him to be able to, tell us that, because he had developed his skill to the point where he enjoyed playing and ministering his talent, environment, but also to the work of God. And that's one thing that we involve our children in whatever we're doing in the ministry. We never separate, the ministry versus other things, but definitely encouraging them that we represent a kingdom, we represent Christ, and that we're going to stick with the objectives and let love lead at every time. We even gave them family rings, a family ring that represents faith, family, purity, and heritage. And every birthday when they turn 13, each boy or each child will receive their family ring to let them know to be faithful, to be family oriented, to walk in purity, and to appreciate the heritage that we are giving in choosing to homeschool them.
Wow. That is precious. I'm just sitting here soaking in all of this great advice. Dear listeners, I hope you are too. This has been a wonderful session, wonderful time. Thank you so much, Pastor Fredrick and Antionette, for giving us your time and sharing just very generously of yourselves, your experience. We really appreciate it, and I know that this has been an encouragement to many of our listeners. I know it has been to me. It's wonderful to hear from people who have done this 22 years of doing this compared to my.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So I'm really thankful for this. God bless you guys. And thank you for joining us today. So, dear friends, all too soon, we've come to the end of another episode of Homeschool Conversations Africa. Thank you for joining us once again. We hope that you've been encouraged, that you've been inspired, and that you've been blessed. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Till next time, this is your host, Jifa Andam. Today, Carissa couldn't join me, but I'm hoping she will be able to join me the next time. Have a blessed day. Bye.
Bye-bye.